evening. I would like to call to order the February 2025 meeting of the Morrisville Planning and Zoning Board. You will join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Any changes to the agenda? I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. If any changes to the minutes from the last meeting? I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
All in favor? All right. That motion carries as well. We have a new member, Esther Dunnigan, who is in the ETJ seat that is joining us today, and we're glad that we are back at full strength. So everyone welcome Esther. So we can go ahead and move forward to number 5. Thank you.
Testing, testing.
Okay, that should be. Well, I did. I caught it all.
Okay, that's great. So I guess we'll need you to read the entire part.
Y'all are all putting a lot of pressure on me. Yes?
I take full responsibility for this.
Yeah, this is your.
It's not Brooke's fault.
It's not mine.
Secretary Dotson is working to get that running. I think audio's working now, correct?
Correct.
Just wanted to remind the PCB that you did receive a memo a couple weeks ago from the town attorney related to ownership and consideration of that as part of this application. And also indicate for the record that we did receive one email that was forwarded to you this evening, and that was from Ronald Garrett.
Beautiful.
We're not there yet. Hold on, everybody. I appreciate your patience.
Yes, thank you.
I have a really long one, so really works out for times like these. Let me get my phone. One more security code. Hold on.
Sorry, everyone.
Success. Only 34 more steps, I promise. We'll be there in a minute.
Think of how easy all this technology has made my life.
It really has. It's been a joy for me, I'll tell you that.
Overhead projector.
Oh, did I? Y'all saw it and then waited until I passed it. Hold on, we're gonna get there. Sorry, guys. Yes. Just don't ever ask me again. Couldn't tell you how to get back there.
So I guess if you could just please repeat your names just for the record.
Sure.
Testing. All right. Spencer Merritt, development partner with Middleburg Communities, based in Raleigh.
Worth Mills, Longleaf Law Partners, attorney for the applicant, based in Raleigh, 4509 Creedmoor Road, Suite 302, Raleigh, NC 27612. Good evening, board members. As I said, my name is Worth Mills, joined by Spencer Merritt, a partner in in Middleburg's Raleigh office. Reese Kimsey with Middleburg is here as well, as is Alton Smith, the current property owner of this assemblage. That's not what I wanted. Okay, so I gotta scroll.
There you go. Now you can scroll.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. So Elliot gave a great overview of our rezoning, and I won't belabor any of these points, but the rezoning consists of 6 parcels along Church Street, totaling just under 35 acres. We are requesting to rezone from low-density residential to conditional medium-density residential in order to develop a build-to-rent community that is primarily consisting of single-family homes with duplexes scattered throughout the site. Our net density on this site, after subtracting the airport boulevard extension, our net density is 5.2 units per acre, just 0.7 above our recommended density in the future land use map. We contend that the request is consistent with the future land use map, the land use plan, and we appreciate staff's recommendation for approval as well. I'll turn it over to Spencer to give a little bit more information about Middleburg, what they do, about this hamlet design, and show some examples of other hamlet projects in other municipalities.
Okay. All right. Hope we don't mess anything up. Okay. All right. Thank you all for your time. Again, Spencer Merritt with Middleburg Communities. We are a vertically integrated development firm. We're headquartered in the Washington, D.C. metro area, Tyson's Corner, Virginia. We have offices in Tyson's Corner, Richmond, Raleigh, Charlotte, Orlando, Tampa, and Nashville. So we are, or soon to be Nashville, excuse me, in Atlanta. So we're Southeast focused. Obviously, we self-perform construction, property management, investment management. So you'd be dealing with one entity from raising money to breaking ground to leasing units. So that's something, and I myself here locally would be kind of the face and the responsible party when it comes to kind of any issues with the city and or town locally. So one thing that I think is I feel passionate about, and I know our founder Chris Finley feels passionate about. Our mission statement is that we are building a future where everyone has an access to attainable, well-built, and well-maintained places to live. And I think that's important as we kind of go through this to understand that about who we are and why we're doing what we're doing. One thing, we do this every day, so we take for granted that not everyone understands exactly what build-to-rent homes are, homes for rent. It is not apartments. It is not, it's a single family, in this instance, cottage and a small number of duplexes in the property. We focus very strongly on T&D design principles. That's traditional neighborhood development. We're very much focused on, we keep our design less than 10 units per acre. A lot of the traditional, what you see in this region, I won't say there's nothing like this, but we feel very strongly that we have something a little different, a little bit innovative. A lot of the properties you've seen in this area are townhome, very dense townhome communities that are kind of driven by, cars, frankly. So a lot of our emphasis is on walkability. We focus on less than 10 units per acre. In this location, we're obviously much less than that. We're at 5.2 units per acre. So we're even, have more space to work with, as it were. So we are 1, 2, and 3-story designs. We have 3-bedroom, they're a 3-story building, our C1 unit. We have 2-story, 2 bedrooms, and single-story, 2 bedrooms. We'll get into why we have a kind of a mix of units here in a minute. And we're also have 2 parking spaces per unit. We're very focused on green space. Part of some of the early conversations we had were with public parks. We were great with that. We do pocket parks. That's a big part of what we do. We're really intentional about walkability, having the ability to have kind of lots of options for recreation and exercise. So hopefully you guys got this presentation, and if you want to read every single letter on here, you can. but I'll try to keep it high level so we don't get too bogged down in everything. But these next couple pages I wanted to include really because it kind of goes to show you the thoughtfulness that went into kind of how we came to our product, the Hamlet. I'll really focus on what we kind of call our 4 dimensions of whole system vitality. It's really the physical, emotional, financial, and environmental. The physical is, like I said, we focus on walkability, but also, really we call it incidental exercise. The fact that we're going to be constructing a portion of the Greenway is great, but what we're really excited about is just being on the Greenway, because that's an opportunity for people to kind of really stretch themselves beyond what we have. Our internally, we always focus on at least having a quarter mile to a mile walking area. That's something that we focus on, and really having accommodating bicycle share and that kind of thing. So we're really intentional about physical well-being. That's a part of what we're focused on. Emotional, we're very focused on building a community within our properties. We do a lot of events and things like that. I'll get into a little bit about our demographic. Probably shouldn't be too specific, but our demographic likes to be together and likes to have shared events. So we are, a lot of our design is front porches and sidewalks that go in front of those front porches, and opportunity to meet your neighbors. To be quite honest. Financial attainability, again, something we're focused on. And environmental, we are intentional about choosing materials that are considered sustainable, and having low VOC materials. That goes to kind of just cardiovascular health, all kinds of things. Using energy efficient appliances, that is good for the environment, but also good for our tenants for having a lower utility bill. Again, lots of words. If you want to come back and read all these, we can send them to you. But wanted to kind of talk a little bit about how those dimensions kind of inform our design directives. Again, we talked about walkability. We call it human power over horsepower. Fun little acronym there, but being connected to the walking path and having those opportunities within the community are really important to us. Maximizing social interaction. We talked about that with sidewalks, and inclusion is something that we're focused on. And it's a little bit about our demographic of it tends to skew a little bit older. We're not an age restricted community, but just in our experience and kind of our investment thesis with our capital partners, a lot of our demographic is what you might consider a little bit older than the normal apartment renter for many reasons, whether it be relocation to be closer to grandchildren, or just wanting to have less maintenance and less hassle in life, wanting to be closer to other people of like age, like mine. We have our age demographic tends to skew a little bit older. And then also, with a community like this, there's going to be families. So that's also something that we see a lot. We've kind of, we do focus on having child play areas, but also within our units, we have, step-in showers and grab bars, things like that we focus on to make sure that we're accommodating all people. I kind of joke that our residents, they like to see the kid with the soccer ball outside. They just don't want to share a wall with them. So it's a lot of people don't really like to be in a community that doesn't have lots of different people in it. So we promote that. Long-term resilience is another item that we focus on. In a community like Morrisville, I'm sure you guys already do a lot of this stuff, but not everywhere that we operate does. But that's focusing on using native species, recently banned in North Carolina, but CFC-based refrigerant for HVAC. North Carolina Building Code's done away with that, but that was something we were focused on prior to now. And then, we've always included EV charging in our properties, which I'm sure is probably a Morrisville standard already. And then respect the connection in place. We're intentional about where we are, try to incorporate local, artists, things like that within the community. Down in Wilmington, we have a property that's cat-a-corner to the Cameron Art Museum. We've talked to them about, local artists working with us in the clubhouse, potential rates for our members, or for our renters. So that's another thing that we try to just, be a good member of our community. And if you are so inclined, you can take a look at some of these, how these things play out within actual design elements. Some of the things I talked about you'll see are in this. This is just kind of a sample of its that I wanted to just kind of throw up here. The whole document is overwhelming, so I didn't want to include all of it. This is a slide that I wanted to discuss. I've talked a little bit about attainability. I think it's no surprise to anyone here that housing prices have gotten elevated. This graph here, affordability by segment, is provided by Zelman Associates. They're one of the leading economic groups within the housing space. Right now, in the end of 2023, 2024, into this year, as far as a cost of payment versus income, single-family or entry-level homes are about 59% of income, whereas multifamily is obviously the lowest at 42%, and then SFR comes in right around 48%. So it's allowing people optionality within the community, having the ability to move into a home and be in that and have that lifestyle, frankly. It's filling the gap where some people are getting priced out now, or a lot of people are getting priced out, surprisingly. And then, there's some articles here I've just kind of snapped from the internet, but, more renters, more retirees are choosing to rent, just having flexibility, the ability to kind of move around wherever they want to go. This slide is a calculation that we put together based on just kind of average home prices in the area currently, based on what we're compared to what we're an average of kind of where our rents are going to be. As you can tell, I mean, we could debate housing prices and what they would be, but the cost of ownership or cost of renting currently is drastically different. So this provides an opportunity for people to, again, get into a home at an attainable level at a price that is within reach, and without a lot of the maintenance and issues that you have just from home ownership in general.
That's great. And Elliot touched on all of our conditions, and the full list of conditions are in your packet. There were some that I did want to harp on again and reiterate. We are prohibiting a number of uses that are otherwise permitted in the MDR district. Those include live-work dwellings, single-family attached, which for purposes of our zoning district prohibits townhouse developments. So again, we are ensuring that the only housing types that you would see in this hamlet development are single-family homes and duplexes. We're also prohibiting a number of other uses, including family care home, clubs or lodges, daycare centers, parking deck slots, country clubs, and golf courses. We've capped density at 5.2 units an acre, almost at the upper level of the low-density residential future land use map designation. We're trying to stay as close to that recommended density range as possible. We have included a 40-foot minimum building setback to those adjacent homes along Church Street to provide them sufficient privacy as they are afforded today. 10% of all the units that are built will be affordable for the 80% area median income for a term of 30 years, providing even additional attainability for those who would qualify for one of these quote-unquote affordable units, workforce housing units. We're constructing the greenway through our portion of the site, including wayfinding signage that will work with the planning department during subdivision site plan review. Middleburg is paying over $1 million for the Airport Boulevard extension. That is an NCDOT project. Phase 1 is funded. Phase 2, which is this extension, is not funded. So this money will most likely be used to fund other transportation projects throughout Morrisville while NCDOT continues to raise funds for the ultimate airport boulevard extension. And they're paying over $600,000 for the park payment in lieu. We had previously designed a site with a dog park included, but after discussions with planning staff, Parks and Rec, they thought it was a better option for us to scrap the dog park and go forward with the payment in lieu. So that's why we've arrived at a payment in lieu rather than the park area itself. And then requiring solar panels on the clubhouse and maintaining access to the Iron Mountain site, which currently has a cross-access agreement with the current property owner that runs with the land, but we wanted to memorialize it in our zoning conditions as well, just to ensure we're not going to impede anybody's current levels of access to Church Street.
So wanted to to give you guys just a little bit of a visual on the, I don't think I was able to get my pretty colored site plan over in time for the other presentation, but I tried to give a little color to it. On the right-hand side, you can just kind of see some renderings of community access points within the community as it relates to the actual site plan. And then also, I thought it was helpful to kind of list the unit types and square footages, just so people can kind of get a sense of what we're talking about here. Also, just wanted to talk a little bit about the amenities and the just the units themselves, just so you guys understand what it is we're building. Obviously, typical community amenities: clubhouse, resort-style pool, pet spa, grilling stations, electrical vehicle charging stations are all standard within our communities. These are some representative images. And again, these are photos from, thought it was helpful. The renderings, while good to attach to a zoning condition proposal because they're just two-dimensional and easy to attach, they don't really give you a sense of what we're actually talking about when it's a finished product and the quality with which we're approaching everything. So just wanted to include some photos. This is our the front elevation of our clubhouse, some interior pictures of our current clubhouse. This is in Maybank, which is in outside Charleston, South Carolina. This is the club room in that same facility. Pool area, fire pit adjacent to the pool area with some of the homes in the background. In-unit amenities, again, this is Class A rental product, so LVT floors, quartz or granite countertops, soft close hinge cabinets, and stainless steel upgraded appliances. Again, just wanted to kind of give you guys some photos of what the interior product looks like, finished product of what we've got on the ground today. And then our cottage elevations, which we wanted to include them because this has materiality listed out on it, so that we can't switch out hardy board for aluminum siding or something. I mean, we have standards. We have prototype designs that we build off of that we're focused on. It's a big part of how we get an attainable product is that we do the same thing over and over again. These are some elevations we have for less developed that are down in Florida, but they have garages on the front, so it was one to just kind of talk about what they were. This is, again, a finished product. This is a C1. This is a three-story, three-bedroom unit. Has an office space down in the basement area, but this is we have the double balcony there. It's another photo of a single unit. A picture from that porch up top to the rest of the community in the clubhouse. This is a B3 unit. This is a two-story, two-bedroom unit. And then again, just some B3s, and this is a B1. This is the two-story, single-story unit, which is popular with It's very popular, just having first floor master and all that good stuff. This is one of the A1 duplexes. Again, as a one-bedroom unit.
And before we conclude our presentation, I did want to touch on some of the existing zoning and proposed land use policies here. So this is a current zoning map of the area, the property outlined in yellow. The Iron Mountain facility immediately north of us is also zoned LDR, but immediately north of that, along McCrimmon Parkway, is the transit-oriented development zoning, an area planned for intense redevelopment to prioritize multimodal transportation options. Across Church Street to our west, the properties are zoned a mix of high-density residential and medium-density residential. And then the school is zoned office and institutional. So a rezoning to conditional medium-density residential for these properties is not only compatible with the surrounding zoning districts up to and approaching McCrimmon Parkway, but it brings more rooftops, it brings more people to ultimately support the town's investment along McCrimmon Parkway. So when those mixed-use developments do come, there is adequate nearby residential uses to help support those ground floor commercial businesses, help them succeed. And it also brings more rooftops within close proximity of Church Street Park, which Morrisville has invested a lot of efforts to making that a world-class facility as well. So I think rezoning for this single-family duplex for rent product really is compatible with a lot of the investments that this town has made, both from a zoning perspective as well as from a parks and recreation perspective. And then again, looking at the future land use map, our site noted here with the blue star, this property is designated for low-scale residential, which recommends densities up to 4.5 units per acre. As I've said, our rezoning caps that density at 5.2, and we're primarily a single-family subdivision. There are some duplexes, but the predominant building type here is going to be a single-family detached product. If not for the amount of land lost from the Airport Boulevard extension, this development would be very close to that 4.5 units per acre net density. So because our maximum density is closer to a low density residential than maybe your typical medium density residential district, and because we have limited housing types to single family and duplex only, we contend that this request is consistent with the town's future land use map and the land use plan overall. And so just to summarize, the proposed zoning to CDR, we think, is consistent with the town's key policies. It would facilitate development that's compatible with surrounding zoning districts and existing neighborhoods. It would complement the town's investment in the nearby transit-oriented development district and Church Street Park. The proposed rezoning makes a significant contribution to the town for the future Airport Boulevard extension. Again, that money does not have to go towards that extension. The town has the ability to use that for what transportation resources it needs. And for these reasons, we think that the proposed rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest. Thank you for your patience for sitting through that presentation. I know it was lengthy, but we appreciate your time tonight, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
I think at this point, we will do the public comment, and then if you guys can hold on, we can ask any questions that we may have with that. So do we have, I'd like to open the public comment session. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to comment? And if you could, please state your name and address for the record.
Do I need to stand here?
Wherever, yeah, that's fine. It's working, I think.
My name is Linda Lyons, 1005 Church Street, Morrisville. I own the homes kind of in front of, close to 808 Church Street, and I would like the zoning to stay like it is. First of all, we end up getting the notification, the letter late this week. As far as homes, like I say, in front of Church Street, it was site plan said single family, so I think that would be the best in that area. Now, as far as in and out, because it went through it kind of fast to me and I'm trying to understand it. As far as in and out, how would, might be some questions you guys want to ask, but I'm just curious about in and out. Would they be in and out on Church Street? And that's the only way they get in and out?
Our plan shows 2 points of access on the Church Street. We have two different driveways, but both lead church.
On Church Street?
Yes, ma'am.
One would be at,
Attorney Mills, could you speak into the microphone so people can hear you? Well, thank you.
Yeah, I apologize for that. And I'll pull up the rendering just so it can be easier to talk off of that.
do you mind me asking questions? Because I would like to
I'll
know.
give a little leeway. I mean, we didn't start the timer on either, but we'll,
Okay,
as long as everything is reasonable, we'll be
okay.
maybe instructive to everybody.
Okay, so where would the in and out be?
You see that cursor there? So there's a driveway here to a private street, and there is another driveway down here at the southern end. This would loop around and connect with this private street, but these are our two access points onto Church Street.
Okay, now, so I guess that's my land kind of in the middle,
Yes, ma'am.
right? And you said the buffer would be 40 feet?
At least 40 feet.
Okay, what kind of buffer would it be?
Well, it's a building setback buffer, so.
I know, would it be vegetation, or would it be fence, or what kind of?
I think the UDO would have some requirements on landscaping, but I might leave that to Elliot to answer. If you,
Yeah, so UDO requirements would require a landscaping buffer along that perimeter of the development. So in between this line of homes here, there would be a required landscape buffer running along here between them and the back of your property.
Okay, and I'm just wondering if this did go through, could the setback be a little bit further, or it would stay at 40? Because I know with some, it can be 50 feet, it could be 100 feet.
So there are required setbacks for the MBR district. 40 feet is going to exceed the UDO requirement most likely, but yeah, so I honestly, we felt from a staff standpoint that 40 feet was reasonable with the vegetation as well.
Okay, and then I wanted to bring up, now, I know, like I said, I've been in the community for a long time, and I know they used to have auto mechanic back in the back of that property. Have that been checked for contamination or anything to see if there was contamination on that property?
Yeah, and if I could just interject for a second, my apologies. Maybe if we could answer that question, and then as we move forward, typically we would take all public comment and then respond to any questions collectively at the end.
Okay, and then another thing I'm concerned about is the streams. There are streams on that land, and I know there is I think they call it a culprit, where water comes from. They got a pond close to 810, 812, 814 Church Street, and the water comes from over where the school is. It's been there for a long time. It goes into this pond, and it goes side the house to the back to the stream. There are all streams back there, correct? Streams.
Yeah.
Okay, if we could hold all
Yeah,
the
yeah.
responses
Okay.
until after we've
Okay,
heard
there
all
are
public
streams back
comment.
there, so
Thank you.
I'm concerned with the flooding of 810 and 812 and 814 Church Street, because when you build, I know it's down a hill, so I'm concerned about that at the road. And let me see. And the congestion that it's going to bring to Church Street. Church Street is already over congested, so I'm concerned about that. especially in and out, because like I say, it's a long line in the morning and in the evening. So that might be all I have, but, I'm definitely not in favor of multifamily homes.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other members of the public for a comment on this item? Had a couple of people that joined late. No?
Hi, my name is James Hinton. I've got property at 838 and 840 Church Street. And my concern is not so much of what you're building back there, but is the traffic concern on Church Street. It is a nightmare. I mean, at about 8:45 in the morning to 9:15, I mean, traffic is backed up from McCrimmon back beyond Iron Mountain. Same thing in the afternoon from probably about 4:45 to 5:15. And if you're putting, I think you said 100 and some odd units back there, and you planning for at least 2 cars per unit, that's going to be another maybe 200 or 300 cars that's possibly got to get in that short stretch of highway. Has any thoughts been made on how to alleviate some of that traffic jam? I mean, personally, I've had a car wrecked trying to get out of my driveway on Church Street in the morning, and I'm concerned about that.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is Barbara Grissom. I'm at 806 Church Street, right next to where the development is going to end up being. My only concern is how many people are going to be in that area at one time. The traffic in Morrisville is a lot in the morning and in the evenings. I would say, I would just ask that you guys consider low density properties, small homes. Morrisville is a lovely place to live. It's very nice and quiet. The people are amazing. And just adding so many people back there, I was already concerned. I think the homes are beautiful. I think they're nice. I think what you guys are doing is amazing. But at the same time, I can't help but to think about all the other people that have been here. I've been in Morrisville, born and raised. To see how it's changed, it's amazing. But then also, it's a headache to see so many cars, so many accidents that also happen as well. It is a headache. So that's all I really have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? We'll ask about that. If you could state your name and address, then.
My name is Randy Marshburn. I'm at 704 Church Street. My property is adjacent to where y'all plan on building this here. And they are right on the traffic and stuff. There's certain times of day that I don't even bother even try to go up McCrimmon's and because it's so heavy you can't even get through the thing there. But one of my biggest concerns is I got livestock that my property is right up next to theirs. And I think there needs to be some sort of a buffer and probably some sort of protective something, because you're gonna have people moving in, they don't even know what a cow is. Thank you.
Hey, all right, thank you. Okay, can you,
Come
yeah,
up to.
come on to the microphone, sorry, just, she records it and that can help her with the minutes.
My name is Sylvester Harrington, and my property is 802 Church Street, which is adjacent to almost to the new Boulevard extension. And I'm concerned that the property is gonna be rental properties. So are they gonna be rented for like how much and for how long will the lease be? Those type details.
Okay,
Are they gonna be,
all right, thank you.
thank you.
Do we have anyone else who would like to give a public comment on this? Okay, looks like we've got everybody, so I will close the public comment period. Thank you. So I guess we can start with board comments and or questions. Let's start with you, Esther, since you're new, or did you want to start the other way?
Start the other
Okay.
way.
Rick,
Hey,
we'll let you
listen,
start.
we just met tonight. Don't be doing that to me. Man, I have a couple of things. So I think just a definition for the public overall. How do you differentiate the idea with the concept of apartments and then rent to build? Could you explain that to me? I guess that would be more of a legal question. I got two others, so.
Mr. Bain, could you repeat that question for us, please?
How would you differentiate the idea and the concept rent to build and just what people would consider, no matter what you're doing and putting up here, still considering it as apartments and just rental units? So if you could explain that, I appreciate it.
So I think one thing to understand is single-family rental is a blanket term that can include just your neighbor renting their house out when they move somewhere else for a couple of years and then want to come home. I mean, it's all of these things are single-family rental. What in the last few years and something we've been focusing on is that dynamic when it's a corporate interest can get negative, and we're not in that business. And when you do it purpose built on one plot of land where it's never going to be sold off, it's always going to be one single property, one master meter for water, one management company. It's much more kind of easily managed, and there's not really kind of running all over town, that kind of stuff. So that's the difference between single family rental and build to rent, purpose built. But as it relates to build to rent versus apartments, I mean, I hate to state the obvious, but it's a separate structure as opposed to they don't well here specifically only the duplexes share a common wall, and the apartments are obviously built up on multiple levels and things like that. So from a perspective of having a common owner and a management company that's servicing the property and taking care of trash and all that kind of stuff and making sure no one's having exterior trash or anything like that.
To make it short to my point on it, which I am, I apologize, I'm pretty blunt on this.
Uh-huh.
So at any point, would these people have the option to buy these units or not?
No, it'd
No.
be purpose built.
Okay. My other question, I appreciate with all the trees and everything, I haven't been out there, so I know there's a big field and everything. So you've taken a look at Morrisville's tree canopy concepts and stuff with development, I'm sure. And I'm sure it's got with planning on the requirements and all that too.
In terms of the tree preservation code and tree preservation requirements, general statute does not allow us to require tree preservation for single-family developments, and this is a single-family development. You do see some tree save on the sketch plan, so I'll allow the applicant to speak to that, but there is not a requirement for tree preservation per statute.
But I'm sure you have a recommendation in mind. to-
I mean, tree save is sometimes a percentage of a, property. I'm not sure if you guys have a multifamily tree preservation statute. And we sure to when I was looking it up last night, actually, it was a lot of Wake County tree preservation standards. We've done a lot in Raleigh. I mean, I'm familiar with the concept, and we have not fully designed our stormwater areas. It's called open area on the plan here, these blue areas. We're going to try to not have so many ponds, but so one of those areas could potentially be a tree save area. We're not currently laying them out as homes, so certainly don't have a problem with preserving some trees. It speaks a little bit to one of the questions we had about those areas that are currently shown as trees are that's a stream buffer. I think in Morrisville is probably similar to other jurisdictions, 50-foot stream buffer. So streams in the middle, 50 feet on either side, we're not allowed to touch it. So those trees will all remain. The Greenway will kind of skirt along one side of it. Yeah, that's kind of, just to speak to that point.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Ben. So, the other thing I was gonna ask you, in regards to the affordable housing, is that situated to a certain unit, like a one-bedroom or two-bedroom, that you've restricted that affordable housing, or is it open your percentage to different availabilities with that? And with the term is, so many people, even in Morrisville, confuse affordable with low income in Section 8, and it's not the same thing. So affordable, what can I ask you, is that geared to a certain size of unit that you have there? That's just information. Thank you.
It's not in our conditions to identify the units specifically, but the A1 units, the one bedroom duplex units certainly would be of the size that would fall into that category. So that's probably the units that, the way we model it, if you will, financially, is it's just a percentage of rent that we're assuming has to be at a certain threshold. So it's not really, spelling it out which units it will be.
So you're open to that aspect?
To picking the units is
to a certain degree.
Would you like, are you looking for
diversity with some
a
people?
requirement or
You're not
requirement
restricting affordable as here's what they got to take,
Right. So having different unit types within
Yes.
that pool of affordability.
Yes.
And to your point, Mr. Bain, a lot of times this lowercase affordable housing conditions get conflated with capital A affordable housing, where you've got like LIHTC tax credits and things of that nature involved.
That's HUD housing, yes,
Right.
I understand.
This I would frame as workforce housing.
Okay.
80% AMI is probably where you'll have a lot of teachers, firemen, cops, nurses, people that obviously are valued in Morrisville, but they may have a hard time sort of finding that housing type that fits for them at the price that works for them. So to Middleburg's credit, I think what they have done here is created, for anybody passing by is going to say, oh, that's a nice single family subdivision. But for somebody who is looking to rent there, they say, well, I don't have to pay $100,000 for a down payment on a house in Morrisville. I can get a single family house in Morrisville at, half the monthly cost that a for sale product would. And I don't have to, worry about lawn maintenance and things like that. So I think what Middleburg has done is identified a missing piece of the housing puzzle. And I think this fits a very good niche for the town. It's not multifamily. It's not the form of apartments, but it does solve some of that attainable housing problem that everywhere in North Carolina is experiencing.
Thank you.
Thanks. So, Gemma,
So you said like.
if you were speaking the microphone as much as you can.
So when you said like conditional medium density, right? What does that mean? What do you mean by conditional?
So conditional meaning that although we are asking to rezone to the medium density residential district, we are voluntarily offering conditions that exceed Morrisville's land development ordinance. So for example, on density, we have capped residential density. I don't know what I just did. We have capped residential density at 5.2 units per acre. That's one of our conditions of approval if town council ultimately were to decide to approve this case. If they did, that becomes as much a part of our zoning district as the MDR zoning district itself. So whether Middleburg were to build this, if for some unforeseen reason they sold that property to somebody else, they would still be held to the same zoning conditions of approval that we have offered. I think, and planning can correct me. I think the maximum residential density in the medium density residential district is 7.5. 7.5. So without that condition, we could build up to 7.5 units an acre, which would result in probably close to 80 more units here. But because of our future land use map designation, because of the built environment around us, which is primarily low density residential, although there are medium and high density residential zoning districts to our west, we contend that a 5.2 units per acre zoning condition achieves their goals from a development perspective while also ensuring that this is not going to become incompatible with surrounding properties. So any zoning condition that we've offered, if this is approved, it's the law of the land. And if somebody wants to change it, they've got to come before you all and ask you to do so. So those conditions serve to protect the community moving forward.
So this rezoning amendments gives you about 30 houses more, right?
Yeah, it's about 0.7. So
I figured it was 135 houses earlier that you could do under the 4.5.
And, the 4.5, way this kind of came about is that the dedication of the right-of-way, that is part of the property that is being dedicated, and it can't be used as part of the calculation. So if we included that dedication of the right-of-way, we would be at the 4.5.
yes, this project does require dedication of a lot more right-of-way than you might see in a typical development pattern, just because of the NCDOT Airport Boulevard extension in the southeast corner of our site. That eats up a lot of room. We have to account for two different options that NCDOT has provided on their website. So this is as much right-of-way as could possibly be needed for that completion.
All right, Chris?
My question's back to land use. Are we in airport overlay AOB for this section?
We are in airport overlay A.
So just to refresh my memory, it's been a while since we talked airport overlay. We had discussed in this area sound dampening and whether it should be high rise, low rise. And at some point we had decided this wasn't a good fit for density of single family homes unless there was some sound dampening added to the houses. So maybe they can walk through how those are designed to accommodate, or did we bypass that?
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, Michelle, are you able to check on that really fast? I don't think they actually are in the airport overlay now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm just double checking the map. There is a portion of the site closer to the railroad tracks that is within the overlay district. I believe it's the airport overlay B district, but I will double check.
And then also just as a general question, I'm not sure, I'm still viewing it like some other type of complex. So your services, will you be able to have trash pickup, or do you have a dumpster, for example? How does your community work?
So we have valet trash, which basically we handle our own pickup to a central location. So we have it's I guess maybe private trash pickup from the homes
And then you take it to a dumpster on
to
the back
one of our
the
dumpsters
site?
that then gets taken away.
Okay, so then we wouldn't be using like the city white appliance pickup for these locations then, because you're on completely different trash. I'm just thinking
It'd be
city
commercial.
services.
Yeah, that's right.
They wouldn't be eligible for white, I don't think. Anyway.
Okay, and then your mail would be central location as well?
Correct.
Okay, and then I was looking through the different pictures of the houses, and there seemed to be three different kinds in what's listed on this versus on here. Are there garages on the front of these? So you have a ranch home that has a garage in the front. and then it looks different somewhere else, and you show all this grass and the sidewalks. Are these going to have 2 parking spaces directly in front of them, and some of them also have a garage in the front?
So I don't know if you want to speak to the UDO. That is a UDO requirement. We don't have to have the two to have the in front.
I'm,
parking.
I'm asking where you showed a couple different pictures,
yeah.
and so you included in your, what was being submitted, you included, I think, 10 different pictures of houses and different pictures in there. So I'm just asking, some of them have garages in the front, and from this drawing that you included, it looks like the front of each unit has 2 parking spaces. So you would pull in and park, which would be concrete front yard. Is that clear?
Correct.
Okay.
And then that's why we included multiple different options, is that we don't, our typical prototype, which is these and the pictures we have, does not have garages in the front. This is something we've been working on, which is why it doesn't look as good. So we've been trying to develop a garage loaded, front loaded design. So we're working on it.
So when I look at this, just so I understand, I'm not challenging you, I'm just trying to understand. They have 2 little lines in the front of every
Yeah,
house.
those are just 2 parking spots because we're not allowed to have off-street parking. So it's,
Okay, so you'll pull in, so there won't be any sidewalks and curbs. If you have visitors, where would they park?
they would park in areas, along the curb.
Okay, so each one, even if it has a garage, so some of them have 1 garage, that would be in the front of the unit, and some of them have a double car, but all of them have the 2.
All of the
I
2
see.
off-street
Okay.
parking.
And then there's probably a tree or some shrubs or something. You take care of all the landscaping, do the
Correct.
individual owners do it?
Correct. No, it's all maintained by us.
Okay, and then do we have anything as far as exterior materials, bricks, colors, anything like that? That's all comes under site reviews later?
In the conditions we included, it's actually not super clear, but we would be happy to make it clearer. Just the type of material it is. It's mainly hardy board and batten board, vertical hardy siding.
Yeah, somewhere you had that, it's the 3-story unit where you have that delineated out with
And so
things pointing to that.
So the conditions reference the exhibit that we just had up here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep, so our zoning conditions reference these 2 elevation drawings, and on this slide here, and
So for example, up on the top, the A1, that's a duplex. Those are 2 side-by-sides that have 787 square foot each. In front of there's 4 parking spaces in front of that duplex, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And no garage?
No, not in the A1.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. As far as your question about materials, that's okay. The UDO does have, we are limited as far as single-family detached and duplex homes as to what we can and cannot require as far as materials and the appearance of the homes themselves, as opposed to maybe a multifamily or non-residential development, if that makes sense. So it's very limited.
Why isn't it a different kind of development? That's just kind of, I mean, it's still, why is it viewed different than any other development that comes in? I'm indifferent whether it's a house or apartments, but still normally we're used to seeing some type of sidewalks and landscaping and materials. That just seems that, I know this is something new and unique, but it seems like it falls into that category of all of our other developments. Why wouldn't we?
Yeah, and Michelle, I don't know if you want to, we haven't really gone over the history of the first round of Hamlet, but your determination that was made in 2022, I think.
Yeah, so this development, the character, the look, the feel, the traffic generation, it is considered a single family and duplex as opposed to multifamily. I don't know if that's your question, though.
I guess the ownership of it comes under a different type of development. It seems more like a development than single-family housing individual lots. And so it just seems like there would be some consistency, because it has potential to be really pretty. So that just struck me as unusual. There wasn't some involvement of the entryway and how the road would go through and the landscaping, but we're just not going to do that with these.
And let me know if I'm not completely answering your question again. So, per general statute, we can't require design guidelines for single family, which is a single family development. With this being a conditional rezoning, if those are some of the types of things that you're interested in, you could talk to the developer about those, but they would need to voluntarily offer up conditions.
Much like what we've already got on there, as far as what they've given us so far, correct? Right.
I mean,
Correct.
I would suggest that we have agreed to materiality in the elevations. Maybe we can make them clearer. I will, granted, I screenshot it. It doesn't look so perfect, but we can spell out what's on there on the C1 there.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what Member Roebuck is speaking to, not just the material of the elevations themselves, but the development as a whole.
Yes.
And kind of the cohesion of the development, everything from pedestrian walkways.
Correct.
Yeah, greenways. And you guys included images somewhat of that, but maybe being able to see more, maybe other developments from Middleburg may be useful as well.
Yes, because we saw ones that look like Flora, like Abaco, you're beautiful and they're colorful in these balconies, but what your drawing has is 4 parking spaces in front of what's, a duplex. So that's all concrete. So that might be okay. I guess it's okay. But when you think about sitting on a porch and walkability, having 4 parking spaces in front of, or 2 parking spaces in front of 700 square foot, that's the entire length of that unit. So it's hard for me to visualize what that would look like. And normally if these were townhomes or something else, we would have drawings and we would agree to some, some camouflage and some bushes and, discuss where the backyard or the seating is in certain areas. That's just unusual because it's a single owner and it doesn't fall under those requirements. Back to the airport overlay. So from that section can we get back to whether there is overlay? And then, certainly we want to make sure that if these will have noise, that there's been extra construction put into the windows and the soundproofing of those buildings. So that, are they prefab houses?
No, they're built.
Yeah, the homes that are located in the overlay, and those would be the homes closer to the railroad. They are required to have soundproofing.
You'll have sound bats.
I mean, I would probably have to check with the sound engineer, but I imagine current code with the insulation we do nowadays, I'd probably have to upgrade our windows, but I imagine the in-wall insulation and the roofing insulation probably already qualifies.
But not insulation, but sound bats.
Well, typically we use spray foam insulation, which also has SEC rated
Foam-based.
qualities.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry, that's all I have.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Ken?
I have a couple of questions.
Make sure you're on the mic there.
A mishmash. I want to pick up on one of the points that one of the gentlemen in the audience made about length of leases. So at your other developments, what is a typical lease length?
We typically one year, 12 months.
Right. So, my concern is that you call it build to rent, which is nice. It sounds good. But at the end of the day, it's just a rental unit, just like an apartment complex. People are going to be moving out after a year. They're going to suffer more, deterioration, I would assume, because of the use, just not paying as much attention to the upkeep of their rental units as they do to their homes. So that's a concern.
Just keep in mind, though, we really can't consider the ownership structure. We can only consider whether the development itself. Right. So we can't.
I want to find out. What's been the average turnover at your other developments?
The typical tenure, Reese, I don't know if you specific, I think it's typically three to.
We see in these developments on the single family side, they're 3 times more likely to release. So, I didn't say my name.
No, just if you can, just so she can hear and people can hear
Gotcha.
him. Thank you.
Yeah, Reese Kimsey with Middleburg Communities. So typically, we found with this and all our reporting and studies on the single-family rentals, they're more likely to release, so about 3 times as likely as an apartment renter does. And speaking to your maintenance question, it's actually found more likely that this is going to have consistent maintenance because this is a single ownership and we maintain everything. We have maintenance tech that live on the site that maintain all your units. Everything from something happening with your door, we're going to come fix it. So everything's going to look the exact same, and we're going to keep it up on the maintenance. Where if they're individually platted lots, you can't go tell your neighbor to go, hey, fix that on your front unless you have an HOA that says go do it.
Yeah,
So
I'm
we
just
actually
talking
found maintenance
regular,
more consistent with that.
You know, regular care and upkeep, mostly in the interior. You know, things get scratched that might be replaced in a home, but not in a rental. Things like that, and then the next renter has to deal with it.
No, we have maintenance techs who take everything from your light bulb going out. We will change that.
And we have within our financial, you know, arrangement. I mean, we after every tenant moves out, what's called turn it. So we spend $300, $400, $500 to get everything back to the way it should look to be a new unit that someone would actually want to live in. Because if they don't, we're not going to rent it.
Iron Mountain retains its cross-access easement, is that correct?
That's correct.
And looking at the diagram on page 11 that's up there now, tell me if I'm wrong, but it looks like that access easement is going right through some of those houses there.
No, it may be illustrated incorrectly, but it will be off that main road. It will be connected to the road. Yeah, there you go.
You can have like a right angle intersection there? Is that
Yeah,
what
just
that's
be
what-
an intersection,
Okay, okay.
private road intersection, stop
And
sign.
not, sorry, Ken, but, and that's going to be signs, I guess, for trucks, obviously, right? Because, I mean,
Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
signed appropriately, sized appropriately.
Are there going to be traffic control devices at the 2 access points on Church Street?
Our trip generation letter that was done by DRMP did not find sort of any recommended improvements outside of the widening of Church Street. So wasn't calling for any sort of traffic signal in and out of the site. There was nothing in the trip generation regarding a restriction in movements in and out of the site. So based on the information that we've gotten so far, we expect people to be able to, you know, turn left into the site or turn out onto Church Street. I'm assuming that this is in the packet. DRMP said it in their summary, based on the results, it's expected that the new density will have a negligible impact on the roadway infrastructure as outlined in the TIA that was done in 2022 when we had a previous rezoning application for this site that was more dense. It included townhomes, but it never got to your dais. That was withdrawn previously. So we built off of that previous TIA, looked at the trips that would be generated based on these new figures and these new building types, and that was the results that DRMP found.
So these access points, they're going to be full access. You can turn left out, you can turn left in.
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
What about access on Chapel Hill Road?
We would not have any access on Chapel Hill. We've got the intervening railroad.
Do you know what the price points are going to be for the different sized apartments? 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom?
I don't have the pricing up here right now, but the average is $2,700 a month. And so, I mean, you could, you know, it's probably 2,100 for the 1 bedroom, 23, 24 for the 2. I mean, I'm speaking kind of in generality here, but that's, and then the 3 bedroom probably be around 3,000.
Okay. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Kristen?
Thanks for the presentation. It's really helpful, and I appreciate a lot of things that you had to say that I think are consistent with Morrisville and, you know, the way that we want the town to grow. I also appreciate all the public comment. I also live off of Church Street, and, you know, to hear you say that there's a negligible impact on traffic just kind of makes me laugh because it is already a mess, and I cannot imagine that another 150 homes would not have an impact. I would also question a survey that was done in 2022 when COVID was still affecting traffic levels. Is that really valid today, 2 years later?
Yep. So the purpose of our latest traffic generation letter was essentially to show that the trips generated from this new rezoning petition was not going to require your full-scale TIA at the rezoning stage. And when I think DRMP is talking about, impacts to existing wait times or levels of service, I don't think that they're making any sort of determination about what Church Street is like today. I think in their mind it is, what does this specific development add to the overall number of trips on Church Street in a given day or during peak AM or peak PM? I don't think that they mean to, dispute anybody's, lived experiences with Church Street. Definitely not. But again, just how this development would contribute to the overall traffic on Church Street.
Yeah, Steve, our transportation planners here. Can you go into that a little bit and also explain whether COVID had anything to do with any of these calculations?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair and Board. My name is Caleb Allred. I'm your transportation planner for the town. I oversee the traffic impact analysis process for the town. This was in coordination with NCDOT, the applicant, and our on-call consultant, traffic engineering consultant. Those counts were taken in 2022. It was determined after as the applicant resubmitted that a new TIA would not be necessary because of the UDO requirements surrounding a new TIA. The applicant was actually submitting less units, less density, and thus less trips generated to the system. I think the interesting part to note about that TIA is that it actually factors in directly the project, now completed Morrisville Carpenter Road widening. It also indirectly factors the U57 47 McCrimmon widening project. So as the applicant stated, what you're experiencing today is going to be much different than a full build out scenario of this development, and that is factored into this project.
Okay. But there's no plans to make any changes to Church Street as it is. So people who actually live on Church Street are not going to see any changes made on Church Street. Like there's no widening of Church Street. We're not going to make Church Street 4 lanes.
The Church Street will not be widened to 4 lanes.
Right.
The applicant is required to construct their half of the road improvements as part of the site plan submittal. So what that would look like is likely a little bit of asphalt on the side to widen their lane to its full extent, curb and gutter and sidewalk on their half along their property frontage.
Okay.
I also want to just clarify the Airport Boulevard right-of-way and PIL that was paid. The applicant stated that that was to be used generally for transportation funds. That is actually, apologies, but that is an incorrect statement. The town's policy is to use that fund directly for the project it was paid for. So that Airport Boulevard widening money will be used for the the extension, my apologies, the extension of Airport Boulevard. And I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
I was going to ask that actually, so thank you.
Absolutely.
I know that phase 2 is not funded right now, but is there an estimation of is that planned for 2030? Is it hoped to be funded by 2040, or is that just still unfunded? We don't know.
That is an excellent question. I actually, off the top of my head, do not know. Planning Director Stiegel, do you have an understanding of that project timeline?
So there is not a timeline for the phase 2 extension now. That includes the bridge and overpass over 54. The phase 1 project should be starting construction later this year, but that will terminate at Church Street. Phase 2 still needs to be score high enough to make its way into the STIP.
So what is the timing, and maybe I missed it in the materials, what is the timing, when would these homes be ready for people to move into?
Assuming approval, we would start the permitting process. You guys can fill me in on your timeline, but usually about a year of permitting to actually get ready to start. And then it's typically a 2-year build out. So, call it 3 years from today, potentially.
And that is reflected in their TIA as well. It's a 3-year build out is what was referenced in their TIA.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Esther?
Some of my questions have been answered, not necessarily to my satisfaction, but let me ask you about one of them, because you have here the entrance. You have 2 entrances into your property where you're building, and one I see, the first one, that will also accommodate iron mounting. You have houses there along Church Street. Is that a 40 or 50-foot buffer from Church Street? Because it's the back of those homes that we're looking at facing Church Street. So what is the distance here that we're looking at?
Right there.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not sure your street setback is, but I imagine it's about 40 or 50 feet as well.
40 or 50 feet. Okay, then coming into this is 40 or 50. Okay, so that's the same that we have behind the houses that we have further down the street there. When we look at this entrance into Iron Mountain, and you said it would be wide enough to accommodate the trucks that come in and out, are we looking at a 3-lane going into this property and this housing development you have, or is it breaking down to just a 2-lane where trucks?
It would be a 2-lane road.
2-lane. Okay, then for Church Street, you said that you will do your part of the development to get the right of way. Am I right?
The widening of Church Street?
Widening of Church
yes,
Street.
on our side
So
of the road.
you're responsible for it, the 50 feet of that?
I'm not sure the exact what distance is, but it's probably about 50 feet.
So, yes, ma'am. So the Church Street is required to be widened to its their half of the full cross section as outlined in the comprehensive transportation plan. That is I believe it's a 50-foot right of way, 2 lanes with curb and gutter and sidewalks on both sides. So they would be required to widen their half of that to its fullest cross section and also dedicate that right of way.
So we're talking 25 feet?
Well, I mean, there's right of way out there right now. Unfortunately, I'm off the top of my head. I don't know what that right of way is. They're required to widen their half of it to get to that their half of that 50 foot.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So the turn lane coming into your property off Church Street, right along that area, are we looking at a turn lane there, or are we still just looking at 2 lanes? What are we looking at?
The traffic impact analysis indicated that a turn lane would not be required there to mitigate their traffic at peak hour.
It would not.
Yes, ma'am.
I find that difficult to follow because when I see the traffic in this area, and I see how long sometimes I've had to wait at the stoplight itself just to move forward. So I'm a little concerned about that. And I'm also concerned about the second entrance that you have that's coming through because are you planning a turn lane for that? No turn lane for that either?
The traffic impact analysis indicated that no road improvements outside of what is required in the comprehensive transportation plan to be necessary here to mitigate their portion of traffic on the network.
All right, let me ask you something else.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you all are doing a payment in lieu for parks, am I correct? You're building all these units, and while you indicate only about 98 students will be coming out of this area, but we're looking at we're looking at children from 0 to whatever, 18. And you talked about the fact that they could easily walk to the new Church Street Park that's up the road, up the street. I'm sorry, got to call it a street now, up the street. And but I'm concerned about the traffic and even the walkability of that, considering the traffic and having to cross and everything. Why did you decide not to put a playground of some sort in this development?
It's just not shown on the site plan right now, but there'll be a playground.
It's not shown.
It'll be a property playground. It's not we had a public park shown. They were asked to give a payment in lieu of the park. But we'll have a playground for our residents.
Okay, because all I saw was the clubhouse. I didn't see anything beyond
We
the clubhouse.
just
and the
haven't
swimming
detailed
pool.
out all the amenities yet.
Yeah, so for the purposes of rezonings,
Yeah, you don't need-
typically, in this case, I'd say it's more detailed than a lot of ones we have.
Yeah.
We usually keep it a little more high level. They'll get more into the details when it comes to site plan review with
Okay.
staff.
They showed the other, and that's just why I was wondering why that wasn't shown on here. That was some concern. And I guess when I was listening to the residents that live in this area, they were extremely concerned about the traffic and some of the other things. Have you all had a chance to communicate with them about this project, or is this the first time that there's been any exchange about it?
This is the first time we've had a public appearance.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you. I mean, pretty much all the questions I had were answered. The one thing, I'm looking at the plan, I feel like the nice picture you have for A here can't really fit there. And some of the previous things that you showed in your presentation showed things that are not even considered here. So that's a little concerning, the fact that it's not accurate to what you're building. Right? I mean, here you show things that are not going to be built here. Do you see what I'm saying? Like earlier when you had this huge green, people walking around, all that, that doesn't exist on this site. So
in previous iterations, we did have that.
Okay.
I
got you. And I understand and it is a little bit weird because like we do usually have more of a high level thing. And so
UDO
it's easy to get focused on that.
Kind of put us where we are now.
Right.
We would love to do it like that.
Yeah. And then the areas, you have like the open space, and clearly you're going to design all of your stormwater retention and everything else. But the in between that, I guess it's kind of that's just a little ravine there where that stream buffer goes, correct? And you're just going to leave the trees that are whatever in there. You're not going to disturb anything inside of those. You're
correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was pretty much everything. Is there any other comments? Okay.
Living off of Church Street and in some of our subdivisions up there, like Providence Place and stuff, we have a turn lane to go in. So the consideration with the turn lane, especially off Church Street, because we all know it's like a bottleneck with so many different things. Just a consideration for a turn lane going in there. So as you get up off of Church Street, because you have one lane going each way, north and south. That's it. And if that thing backs up on McCrimmon until they do some type of flyover or something, it's a bottleneck depending on what type of day you did your study. And I apologize with that because I don't know when you did it, what time. But first thing in the morning, you're playing Mad Max to get over there. But just a consideration of widening it to a degree where there would be a turn lane going into your unit would be very helpful. I don't know if there's been any consideration, right turn only to go up.
Member Bain, I'm hearing from IT that they can't hear you. Can you possibly pull your mic forward?
Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
So the only consideration, and I think the concept is I like the concept. It's just a consideration with traffic. If you don't live here, you don't know what the traffic's like with that. And you're dealing with one lane each way. To have some type of a lane that would turn into the development, and not that I like restrictions because I'm not that type of guy, but if there is a type of thing that you coming out, it's a right turn only or whatever, to go across that would cause a lot of, I believe, just as a common resident and a driver for 108 years, that it is just to get across that street in the morning, maybe not at 10 o'clock, maybe not 11 o'clock, maybe not at 2 o'clock, but the times that are early and critical, I just hate to see somebody get hurt with that. And that's just a consideration as a resident to take a look at that part of it. And I understand all the studies are done, but they're done at a certain time. So I would just ask for that consideration aspect of it too. And I think and not to speak for Lisa, but I think one of the things that came up with the units, if you have people visiting and you have relatives, and is there any conceptual aspect to have any type of overflow parking, maybe 4 or 5 spaces throughout the development where people could do overflow parking?
I mean, the street design, I'm not totally sure what our distances are, but there would be ability for street parking. And then by the clubhouse.
Not curbs. Actually putting in, get people out of the way of traffic going through the subdivision. That's what I'm meaning.
Okay.
Just a thought. That's just my thoughts.
I guess going back to so B here, is that what you're talking about, where you have an indented area that's showing
If you
like
have
in B?
intensive area, if you have people coming in town to visit or something, you only have 2, you can park in your drive or whatever, or in front of your house, someplace else, because what it's going to do is create some chaos in there, just as a consideration.
Certainly.
So yeah, is B something that is that just one of the things you'd done in the past, or is that
That's something we've done in the
Yeah,
past.
okay.
The UDA didn't allow that.
Oh, okay. Well, the UDO doesn't allow you to make that the parking for the units. It doesn't, I don't think, ban you from having parking that wouldn't be in your total number, but would have to check with.
Yeah, I will say, this application came in July. We've had a lot of back and forth, the applicant and staff. Part of that is coming based off of the original rezoning application 2 years ago. What we heard a lot of was pushback against on-street parking. And so I think staff working with the applicant, it was a recommendation that the original design, which had on-street parking, maybe some of that be removed.
If I could expand on that, because the UDO has been referenced a couple times in relation to that. So the UDO requirement is that 2.25 spaces be provided per unit. Typically that happens by providing parking in driveways combined with guest parking area of sorts. In the TOD and the Main Street District, on-street parking can count towards that requirement. Those are the only 2 districts where on-street parking can count towards your per unit requirement.
Right, so they can't use spaces like that to count towards a requirement, but they're not stopped from making additional spaces there, correct? They just can't count.
You could do a guest parking area and then use that to offset and reduce driveways.
So I guess what I'm hearing, so we're going to have 0.25 additional parking spaces in addition to the 2 that wherever they end up.
Yeah, I mean, I think the concern isn't crazy to think that, if you did have the indented areas, it is better than having a car on the street. I mean, that just makes less conflicts, but yeah. But it just can't count for the most part towards your thing with the UDO, so I understand, yeah. Anything else? Chris,
Do you plan to have a swimming pool at this location? Sorry, do you plan to have a swimming pool at this location?
Yes.
My only other suggestion would be, Elliot, in this document, is to make sure it aligns and that these houses that don't belong aren't included in here, because we have excess, so there's no misunderstanding, and that the parking spaces are added up to the corner to match what's in this presentation, so that we know there's going to be 323 parking spaces. So the pictures look really nice, but what's in our packet, our document, is very generic, and some of it differs. So these are the appendix to the ordinance, so I'd just say streamline that a little bit.
Okay. I mean, I do want to say that the intention of using multiple units is that this is our current site plan. We're going for a zoning of 5.2 units per acre, and we're committing to doing some version of all of these units. This is the best mix that we have right now, but like we were talking about with parking garages and things like that, we wanted to have the ability to potentially go do some part. We didn't want to come into site plan and then say, oh, you didn't have parking garages on your elevation, now you do. So we wanted to include some units that had that kind of thing in it.
Because it makes a big difference, even with the discussion over parking on the street, what was in the packet, there is no place to park on the street because it's all driveways to the front. Those 2 parking spaces in front of every unit, there wouldn't be on-street parking because that's somebody's driveway. So that entire street is somebody's 2 driveways in front of every single unit.
I think when we get
Some
an
of them
actual
having
site
4.
plan design, we're gonna have to make more accommodation for parking because we have to get that additional 0.25 per, so that's, what is that?
Okay.
150 times 0.25, more parking spaces. But when we were putting together this site plan, our directive was to get the parking off the street. So that's kind of what you're seeing right now, but there will be additional parking.
Yeah, typically we see those for single-family developments. We'll see mail kiosks.
Mhm.
They'll come with
Yeah.
10 spaces here, and so it's kind of spread out throughout the development to make up that extra 0.25 requirement.
That's good. Okay. Very good. Thanks.
Any
And,
other?
sorry, just for clarification, you were asking to update the sketch plan that's attached to the ordinance currently.
Yes, just to put the parking spaces on it, or if there's some housing that they know they're not going to use, because I think there's about 10 different ones, just that, do you want it to be that fluid as you're,
Probably.
I mean, it's a big difference between
Yeah, and
all parking in front of the units and having grass walking areas, because what they're showing here is not Pleasant Street with trees and people sitting on their front deck. It's parking in front of every single unit. That's it.
Yeah, and this sketch plan is more recent, more updated, so we can absolutely change that out. That's just a little less detailed version that you have on the ordinance currently.
Okay, because some of the areas that are close to there have similar. They have a driveway and a parking lot, but they're double the size. So these are tiny little homes. In fact, you should call them houses, not cottages. That's kind of misleading. But, these are little tiny houses, so I think it'd just be more helpful as
Cottages.
city council looks at this.
Cottages, Lisa. It'd be a great idea if you had 1 or 2, 3 scenarios. I'm thick, so I'm speaking for myself. Could actually see where you had your parking and the offset of it. I think it would be helpful to kind of get an idea of that. Because I think that's important, because parking on the curbs on the streets and being with some of the subdivisions in this area, a lot of people get whacked or hit with that, very plain and blunt with it. So the more you can get off and that type of thing, not a parking garage by no means, but just something that would give some insight, Mr. Mayor, and stuff to understand, what's going on. I mean, this conceptual, I think, is nice, but it's just seeing the total impact of it. There we
Can
go.
I say one other thing?
Sure, go ahead.
Because as I look at this and as I listen, one of the things that you all are planning to do is to, of course, to upgrade and put the sidewalks in and on your side. But that area from where the current residents live would be without that, am I correct? And that's one of the reasons why I ask, has there been any communication with them so that we have some continuation of what you're proposing to go along Church Street? And I see this so often, and not necessarily in Morrisville, but in other places as well. But I see where a developer comes in and it cuts off, you'll T-bone the exit right there where people come in. And so and we do have some like this in Morrisville. And it concerns me tremendously that there is no effort made to show a continuation of a project or to show some inclusiveness of what you're trying to do and to how you're trying to develop your area in Morrisville. I see Morrisville as one continuous town, not as little developments here and you skip over and you have another development. I would love to see that continuation. And I really feel that it should go all the way up to McCrimnum. So I think there should be something in consideration with you and the town and the residents of how you can generate that so that when we're looking at this development, it looks as if it's a part and you've tried to be inclusive of people who are currently there.
Yeah, I can speak to that, and I think that we are happy to sit down and have a conversation with the homeowners along Church that are adjacent to us. The one thing that I would say about sidewalk construction is those property owners will have the ultimate call on whether that's something that they want. Middleburg not owning that property and not developing that property doesn't have any legal authority to go on their site and make those sidewalk improvements. But that's something that we can talk about and see if that's of importance.
Thank you. All right, any other?
Excuse me. Michelle, is there any programs in conjunction with extension of sidewalks that we work in conjunction with any developments like this for continuity?
We could evaluate that. I wouldn't want to guarantee anything. There's a prioritization and evaluation when we're trying to look at filling in sidewalk gaps, but we could take a look.
But this has been done before in Morrisville.
We can, but we can't force them to do something on site, and we can't force someone else to sell their land. And yeah.
He was asking, and I was letting him know that this kind of thing happened.
All right.
I would, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Apologies. If it is the will of the board to recommend to town council, we talked a lot about TIA and having, as some board members mentioned, the age of the TIA and if it's still accurate. If it is the will of the board, they can recommend to town council to update that TIA as part of development plan approval and have any recommendations associated included in their development plan approval. That is something that the board may consider if they wish.
So what's the last date with that last review and improvement?
My apologies, Board Member Bain, I'm having trouble hearing you.
When was the last time it was updated or approved?
So it was approved in September of 2022. And the applicant submitted a trip generation memo to verify traffic counts would be under the approved TIA's threshold, or approved TIA's volumes when the applicant came back to submit their rezoning request. I think that would be, that is a data-driven way that we can reevaluate that TIA and verify some of the residents' concerns, some of the board members' concerns, and ultimately include that as part of their site plan approval.
Thank you for that info.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other comments? So would anyone want to make a motion, and would you want to include a recommendation to update the TIA as Mr. Allred has recommended? Do we have the, can you bring up the statement? Is it any further discussion about it, or does anybody, would anyone want to make a motion? No?
I'll make the motion. I'd like to make a motion on ordinance 2025-46-0 of the Morrisville Town Council approving a zoning map amendment for 808 Church Street and multiple parcels with an existing O Street, Church Street address located at Church Street south of the intersection of Church Street and the McComan Parkway from the low-density residential zoning district to the conditional medium-density zoning district. And this was contingent on a new traffic study. And do we also want to include anything on the airport with that as well, or are we fine on that?
I think the traffic study would probably just account for everything. I mean, if they were to do another one, it would take the whole network into consideration.
So you want an update on the traffic study?
Well, I mean,
We updated TIA.
Okay, update on TIA, okay.
so do we have a second on that? So it needs to be one of the, you're an alternate this week, so it needs to be
Never full-time, it doesn't really matter. Part-time.
somebody from this end. No second? I will second the motion. Do we have any discussion on the motion?
I think I would just say, I mean, based on my previous comments about living near this area and the impact of the traffic, I would not be in favor of anything that would change from low density residential. I understand that it's not that different, but I would prefer to leave it at the low density residential.
Well, okay. I mean, but is there any other, I mean, so yeah, I'm just, want to give everyone a chance if there's a discussion about the motion before we vote on the motion. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So all who are in favor of the motion with the recommendation to update the TIA, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All who are opposed? Did you get that? Okay, thank you. So the motion is recommended as not to be approved.
So, and this may seem silly, but that ends up being a failed motion.
Oh.
So technically, we'll need a motion for denial.
Okay, gotcha,
We'll need a motion that passes by majority vote.
Okay, got you. So do we have a motion to deny approval or deny
Sorry.
recommending approval?
Chairman Langston, just
Gotcha.
for clarification, the motion should be motion to recommend to the town council denial of.
Correct,
and then
you're right.
reading out the
Yeah, do we have a
language.
motion to recommend denial of this?
Yes. Make a motion to recommend denial to Town Council of Ordinance 2025-46-0 of the Morrisville Town Council approving a zoning map amendment for 808 Church Street and multiple parcels with an existing 0 Church Street address located on Church Street south of the intersection of Church Street and McCrimmon Parkway from the low-density residential zoning district to the conditional medium-density residential zoning district.
All right, do we have a second on that? So Ken second. All right. Any discussion on that? Then all in favor of the motion to recommend denial? Okay. And all who are opposed to the recommendation of denial? Okay. You got that, Brooke? Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
We can, oh, we're not done. Sorry. We haven't adjourned yet. We need to have the Planning Zoning Board calendar change. We need to discuss the calendar change first. So,
So if you don't mind,
6A.
I'm just going to present from here.
sure.
But there is a conflict with your regularly scheduled April meeting, so we do need to find a new date for that meeting. 2 suggested dates were sent out to you, the first being Tuesday, April 1st, and the second being Thursday, April 3rd. It's my understanding that the results of that poll showed that 3 members were preferring Thursday the 3rd, 1 on Tuesday the 1st. But we did not hear back from everyone. So those are your 2 options.
If everyone could, if you would have further discussion, please just out in the back. Thank you.
So those are the 2 options that were presented. If neither of those dates work, we could look at alternate dates, but we were hoping to get that rescheduled for the convenience of really everyone involved in planning that meeting.
So do we have anyone that April 3rd would not work?
It won't work for me.
Okay. Anyone else? Everyone's, so, I mean, well, if one of our members is not here, we'll need at least to have one alternate. And so you cannot make the 3rd. Okay. So the 1st or the 3rd. Okay. I mean, it still sounds like the 3rd may be the best date since we had more votes for that. And we should, so Shima, you can be here. Everyone else can be here on the 3rd. So I think, do we need to make a motion for that or can we just agree by consent?
You would need to make a motion to amend the 2025 PZB meeting scheduled to change the April meeting from April 10th to April 3rd.
All right, I will entertain such a motion.
I move to move the April 10th, 2025 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board to April 3rd of 2025.
We have a second?
Second.
For a second. All in favor? Aye. And so it's unanimous. So we'll move to the 3rd. Thank you. Go ahead. So, I'm sorry. I thought I said so.
So just to go over briefly, your planning newsletter, been at least a couple months since we last met. So want to update the board on a few items. So the town center project that you are all familiar with, you reviewed the plan development rezoning. There was a development agreement that came before you. That site plan application is now in for Block C, that's the multifamily development, and also for Block A, which is the town green. So the development on both of those blocks is now submitted and under review, and we are looking forward to seeing a shovel in the ground this year. So that's pretty exciting. In terms of town council approvals, the Park West development was approved. That was the major modification to their planned development that originally came before this body, I believe, in November of 2023. Went through some iterations, multiple town council meetings, but eventually did receive approval. In other news, the department continues to work on public art. You may recall that we launched a pilot mural program last year and installed 3 murals on different town buildings. We are going to take a pause from murals. We're still planning on doing more murals. But in the interim, launching another initiative related to, I'm sorry, my throat, icons for the town, and you'll hear more about that soon. So you may be familiar with the Durham Bulls or the Bears in Newbern. There's going to be some public engagement where we're going to be trying to identify what Morrisville's icon is and installing some of those around town. So excited for that. We are also kicking off an alternate transit study. That is going to go before town council for a kickoff meeting in just a couple weeks on February 25th. Then you'll be hearing more about that. There will be an opportunity for public engagement and involvement. But the Smart Shuttle has now been operating for a few years, so this is really an opportunity to evaluate that system, evaluate whether we should continue specifically operating it as on demand, if we should go to fixed route, if we should go to some sort of hybrid system. So just taking another look at that system and making sure that we are getting the most out of it. And then we continue to work on affordable housing. There's going to be a work session with town council on February 27th to circle back with them on the feasibility of the Habitat for Humanity potential project, and also further discuss a rental assistance program. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any board comments? Let's start with Rick.
I was just looking for Caleb, and he just walked out.
I don't need it right now. I'll check.
Yeah. No, I will say ridership has been great. The shuttle's been performing really well, really since launch. As a reminder, 50% of the funding for that comes from the community funding area program through Campo. And as part of that grant, they have metrics that we need to meet. We were meeting those from the first month of service. We continually get calls from others in the region asking for our advice. I will say we are considered a leader in microtransit and specifically on-demand microtransit. So the shuttle continues to be performing very well. But we also recognize that it's been operating for a few years. It's probably time to take a fresh look at it. And also, are the goals of the system the same as when we launched? We do hear comments from the public, comments from town council about predictability. That's something you get with fixed route, not so much from on demand. So we're wanting to circle back on some of that as well, make sure that do we have the same goal that we initially did? And then, is the system that we're operating the best to meet those goals? But overall, it continues to be performing well. I will share that in the last few weeks, we have been dealing, there was an upgrade. We have been dealing with some technical issues, a lot of that happening behind the scenes. So just if you have been hearing anything, there have been some extenuating circumstances as of late, but we think we've worked through those.
It's a great system, really.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Sushma? Chris?
No questions?
No comments other than thank you. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
You have a second? Ken seconded. All in favor? Aye. The motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned. Now you can go.